Hello again, Steve here, and today I wanted to weigh a little bit in on this idea of what to have in preparation for an economic downturn. There's been a fair bit of talk about that, about coming, financial calamity and whatever, and of course people have always talked about this thing since I can remember, and probably well before that, years and years and years. And so, the chances of it happening tomorrow are fairly slim, and of course usually things are the norm because that's why they're called the norm, right? But nevertheless, it's like anything else, right? We have fire extinguishers in our house, sometimes to do with regulations and stuff, but often there's reasons behind that. It's a good idea for when what happens, what's not likely to happen happens, and you've got something to go with. So some of the things I'm going to talk about here are probably good things to have anyway, but they can be very advantageous in the result in the event of an economic downturn. And I'm talking about an economic downturn where there are no longer any jobs, where there are a number of people who are very, very distressed, and it can become rather dangerous because they can steal from you. They can, the electricity the grid might be down for a bit, and all kinds of things that could happen when there's an upset of the order, right? Because everything's kind of held together by a house of cards, right? And if you pull one major one, you can have sort of a cascading effect. So I was visiting somebody yesterday, and he was listening to a podcast by, I think it was a guy named Bix Weir, and that guy was talking about things to have, good ideas, good things to have in the event of these sorts of things. And he was mentioning the obvious things. A lot of things are fairly straightforward. Have a stock of food, and have some grains that you can sprout, and have some water on hand, and probably gold and silver and whatnot, right? And all that's great. And of course, water, I've often thought, because I've thought about this stuff through too. If you live in a building, in a house or whatever, that has a hot water tank, the house that I live in a lot of the time has 40 gallons of water in the water tank at any one time. So if the grid goes down, there's no more showers and stuff like that, folks. We just conserve that water. That's 40 gallons of potable water that we can use. Think about things like that. Think about things that you can double use, right? And of course, grains are great, especially grains that you can do multiple things with. If you can sprout your grains, great. If not, you got a good source of starch, which is very, very important for nutrition, right? For energy, because we're going to have to do a lot of things manually once that sort of thing happens. Now, okay, so I'm just going to go through a few other things that I think are important that a lot of times people don't mention. I would say what's important is an alternative shelter in perhaps a slightly different location, because especially if you're in an urban area, if everything goes down, and it might be chaotic, it might be kind of dangerous, there might be evacuation orders if there's natural disaster and so on, and you might have to move. So think about things like, if you have a minivan or a car or whatever, how can you possibly live in that for a bit, right? And where can you go with it? Think of things like that. I was talking to a friend of mine not long ago, and he has a plan, and he said his plan involves not crossing bridges, because bridges can be shut down as checkpoints, right? Because there could be orders by the police to check people and so on and what have you. So you don't want to have to go through checkpoints, because it'll bottleneck things, and your chances of having success when you're bottlenecked and all that stuff, and also chaos and what have you, is greater. So the more you can go into the open, the better, right? So, and if you're considering a four-wheel drive versus a not four-wheel drive, think about if you're in a traffic jam and stuff like that, and everything's backed up, and you've got a four-wheel drive that you can take the curb for a while and get past things and get out. A hurricane coming in, or a earthquake or something like that. Getting out sometimes can be important. And also, stocking of things is important, especially not only stuff that you can consume, but stuff that you can trade. Like somebody I know, he likes to keep a couple bottles of Everclear, 98% alcohol or whatever, because there's so many uses for it, and it could be potentially valuable. It can be used as an antiseptic. You can put it in a chainsaw and cut down wood. You can put it in your motorcycle and skedaddle. You can put it into water and sterilize water and whatnot, and the list goes on. And it keeps forever, right? You can store it, and it's fairly small. It's very, very condensed. So things like that are important. Keeping a level of fitness, of course, and keeping one's health up, because when you go into a situation where you might not be able to eat for several days and you have to maintain energy, that's important. I mean, it's amazing when you're fit how far you can walk. I mean, I've walked up to 75 kilometers in a day with a backpack. And part of the reason I did that was preparedness, right? In case I had to do it someday. And I still keep that backpack. I call it a bug-out bag. I can throw that backpack on and skedaddle and, and live basically for days on end. So it's something to think about. Is if you're going to take up a sport anyway, why not have it be multiple uses, right? Tradable skills are important. Acquire basic skills. How can you frame a house? Can you build a cabin, right? Can you knit a sweater, knit a hat? Can you milk a cow, plant a garden? A lot of these things, a lot of people have to say no to. But once again, spare time. If we're going to be doing stuff anyway in our spare time, why not learn skills? That could be used to help ourselves and to be able to trade, because there might not be a currency for a while, but there's always barter. Like if you need something from somebody else, you could do something for them, and in exchange, right? So what else did I have in here? Oh, I think what's really important, what's not talked a lot about, is relationships. The building of relationships, especially close physical proximity relationships, because if things really go down, people really care for who they love. Right? And everybody's got something they can help the other person with. So that's very, very important too. Get to know neighbors. Be neighborly with them. Be friendly with them. Help them out when they need help, and they'll help you out. And become sort of a little bit social, even if you don't get along all that well in general. It's a good idea to foster those relationships when things go down. What else? Yeah, that's the main things. Fitness level, a place to go, and a means by which to go there. Think of the bug out scenario. You can even have a ramp up situation. Your own bug out gear, but also if you have family and loved one, how can you bug out with them? Because they probably won't be prepared. So maybe think about the van, the family van. How can it be set up in such a way that you could survive? That your basic things that you need for several days, if you got to skedaddle, if you got to go to higher ground or whatever, how can you set that up so you can quickly grab things, throw them in, and go when you get the news, right? A method of personal protection is also important. So self-defense training, things like this can be very important. How to forage for food in a non-urban area, or in an urban area for that matter, because of course all the stores and stuff, they've only got a few days of supplies. They'll be flooded and bought out. So if you run out of your basic supplies, how do you get food? There's food in nature. How to do that though? How to fish? How to hunt game? How to get certain routes, and so on. All very important. Yeah. So nothing conclusive here, just a few thoughts, and because who knows? I mean, it can't hurt to learn these things anyway. I mean, we learn things on a daily basis. Some people read Harlequin romances and stuff. How about, basic Boy Scouts survival guide? That's not a bad read. Probably you can learn a lot of things there, etc. Special forces, how they survived and whatnot. Lots of things that we can learn. It's all there, right? Anyways, if you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll talk again soon. Bye for now.